Monday.
An explosive Senate hearing as Democrats try and fail to discredit Robert F. Kennedy. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt tonight. It is undeniable our health agencies have lied to us for many years, and yet today, Senate Democrats decimated more of their own credibility in a wild hearing on the president's 2026 health care agenda with Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., a man they despise. Democrats did what they always do to Kennedy. They tried to create a narrative of their own, and then they silenced the secretary every single time he was about to disprove that narrative and their propaganda. They just didn't want to let him talk. For those who simply want truth and transparency from their government, today was infuriating to watch. An example here, a prime example from Senator Mark Warner.
You're the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You don't have any idea how many Americans died from COVID?
I don't think anybody knows that because there was so much data chaos coming out of the CDC, and there were so many perverse incentives. And these are model
You don't know the answer of how many Americans died from COVID. This is the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Warner asks a question that he knows is loaded, but pretends only has one answer, then immediately interjects as Kennedy tries to explain how corrupted all the COVID data was under Joe Biden. One reason why we'll all never know how many people actually died of COVID. And there's loads of proof to support Kennedy's position, the AHA even admitting that the CARES Act reimbursed 20% more to hospitals if the patient had COVID, if COVID was the reason they were there. Hospitals are businesses. Imagine how much that was exploited as they just throw your health care money away as they did in the last administration. Even the left-wing Guardian reporting that the Biden CDC at one point just accidentally added 72,000 COVID deaths. There's countless examples of this. So many different flaws to that data. And as soon as Kennedy begins explaining that, Warner just cuts him off, calls him a kook, insults him, and moves on. This is how Washington has handled Robert F. Kennedy for many years. They mock him, but it is interesting that they never actually refute his claims. They just call him the crazy guy with the weird voice, and then they sprint in the other direction. Here is more from Warner.
They fired all the people who questioned the orthodoxy. They fired Dr. Gruber, Dr. Krause,
Mr. Chairman, the Secretary of Health and Human Services doesn't know how many Americans died from COVID. Doesn't know if the vaccine helped prevent any deaths. And you are sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
Why are you so mad, Warner? Why are you sweating? Why do you have to talk over him so much? Why can't you just let him have 30 seconds to explain something? Oh, now you start to see how it works, right? There was tons of this in today's hearing. Enraged insults from politicians who've either been bribed to protect Big Pharma or those who have fully drunk their Kool-Aid.
All over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership.
Pharmacy
the question is everyone who wants it. That was your promise.
I know I didn't. I never.
And you are sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
You're interrupting me, and sir, you're a charlatan. That's what you are.
I'm telling you, the American Heart Association has been co-opted by the food
Everybody but you, Senator. Everybody is corrupt but you. Is that what we're looking at? I don't think so. And I think the issue now...
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, everybody is corrupt except the guy that doesn't need their money. Kennedy, just like Trump, doesn't need any more money. He's actually doing it for the right reasons. And the irony of today was watching Democrats claim that Kennedy is corrupting agencies that they corrupted first. A major topic was the ACIP vaccine panel, which Democrats allege Kennedy has stuffed with vaccine deniers. A panel that for years has clearly been corrupted by vaccine lobbyists. This is how we've been so controlled by an orthodoxy that Kennedy believes has made America very sick, believing that our vaccines should be safer, that we can make changes to them to reduce injuries. And rather than listen to him, he's immediately labeled a psychopath and then silenced. One of the few times he was able to speak, Kennedy talked about a study from Fulton County, Georgia from 23 years ago. Listen to this.
The data from that study showed that black boys who got the vaccine on time had a 260% greater chance of getting an autism diagnosis than children who waited. The senior said, vaccine safety science at CDC, was ordered to come into a room with 4 other co-authors by his boss, Frank DeStefano, who's the head of the immunization safety branch, and ordered to destroy that data. And then they published it without that fact.
There's nothing scientific about any of that. Our public health agencies don't want you to know the full truth about things that they are forcing you to inject in your body, or at least if you want to go to public school. They simply see 330 million people as a massive collective, broadly protected by vaccines, and we can't talk about side effects because that'll create vaccine hesitancy. So oftentimes the truth can be labeled as anti-vax by the trust the science people. That's what's going on. Very dangerous, especially in the years after Operation Warp Speed created a shotgun vaccine for COVID that's clearly linked to things like enlarged hearts, something you don't want. Kennedy just wants you to know everything, and he's the villain. He just wants to put it all out there, and he is the villain, hated by those who have had zero interest in finding out why our country keeps getting sicker and sicker. People like Ron Wyden. Watch this.
I hope that you will tell the American people how many preventable child deaths are an acceptable sacrifice for enacting an agenda that I think is fundamentally cruel and defies common sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I get a reply? Or, Senator, you've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing. You never asked the question why it's happening. Why is this happening?
All right, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is the director of the National Institutes of Health and back with us tonight. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. The secretary today, you saw it, silenced a lot during this hearing as he attempted to disprove a lot of the allegations that were hurled at him. And I thought that was so interesting. The people that never let somebody talk are trying to claim that they're the good guys. That can't be right.
Well, I mean, free speech suppression was a key tactic of public health during the pandemic. I can tell you from firsthand experience, so that wouldn't surprise me. But I thought Secretary Kennedy got a lot of great points in, even though he wasn't given much opportunity to respond.
Yeah, he did, and you know, he fought back. You know, I think that, you know, as far as vaccines go, we watched that be. I think the stickiest point of the day was. Anytime we touched on it, whether it's a COVID vaccine or MMR, things like that, it got really hairy. And I feel like on the left, the position seems to be clear, that they don't want anybody to talk about the fact that there might be harm done by a vaccine. That's a conversation that can't happen because in their minds, that will lead to vaccine hesitancy. And obviously, if nobody gets, especially these more critical vaccines like measles, mumps, rubella, that's a huge public disaster. Kennedy, I think, feels that we should have transparency and we should be working to make these vaccines safer. And for whatever reason, whenever he goes down that road, he's immediately labeled anti-vax, anti-science, threat to public health. Is that how you see it?
It's totally unreasonable, Rob. I mean, look at this. If you look at the MMR, the American people know better. The MMR vaccine, you have 90+% of parents vaccinating their kids, which makes complete sense given what the scientific evidence says and the risk-benefit ratios and stuff. For the COVID vaccine, less than 20% of Americans vaccinate their children for the COVID vaccine because it doesn't make sense for most of their kids from a scientific point of view. The risk of COVID is very low for kids if you're a small child, especially a 6-month-old. Yeah. What Secretary Kennedy is doing is aligning American vaccine policy with what's happening in Europe. It's not anti-scientific. It's actually much closer to what the scientific evidence actually says, rather than treating vaccines as essentially like a religious a religious talisman or something. Instead, we're treating it as something we should apply great, excellent, gold standard science to and give good advice to get good decisions made.
And that just gets the idea of that just gets lambasted. I mean, anything you want to touch any of this stuff, you even want to go down that road. I mean, as we know, they would silence and cancel people as fast as they could for even touching this during COVID. I do want to get to this though, because they have the Florida Surgeon General making this big announcement on what his state is looking at doing with vaccines. Let's play this.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them.
So looking at ending all vaccine mandates in the state of Florida, I think that to a lot of people, and even a lot of people that support Kennedy, this would be probably too far. And I wanted to get, is the administration supporting this? What is the administration's take on this?
I'm not sure exactly what the administration yet has to take on this, but I'll tell you, Rob, if you look in the UK, if you look in Sweden, you look in Denmark, none of them have vaccine mandates for any of their vaccines. All of the vaccines are voluntary in those places. What they do have is public health that doesn't lie to their people. And so you have amazing vaccine uptake for the vaccines like MMR in all of those places without vaccine mandates, without violating bodily autonomy of people, because public health has the trust of the people because they're trustworthy. The problem in the United States has been public health hasn't been trustworthy, especially during COVID. You saw a lot of exaggerations about the vaccines, COVID vaccines' ability to stop you from getting and spreading COVID, for instance. And the mandates, they just deepen the distrust. The strategy of using mandates, it's not obvious it's the right one. And as I said, like in Europe, you have a very, very different strategy, and they have better results than we do on the uptake of essential vaccines like the MMR.
I don't think a lot of people realize that there isn't a mandate, if you want to get into public school, for instance, for a lot of these vaccinations in Europe. I did not know that. That's the way it is, huh?
Yeah. It's not. They're not coercing people. What they're doing, they're reasoning with people. I find that approach quite attractive. I mean, I'm not making an announcement as far as the administration is concerned. I'm just telling you my point of view as an epidemiologist and scientist. That seems to be the better approach to public health. Talk to people. Talk to them about the data, what the data actually show and don't show. Be honest about when there are problems, and then treat people like adults, especially parents. Help them make good decisions for their families.
Senators Kennedy and Cassidy, both Republicans. Kennedy, I usually really like, have both had some pretty harsh comments about the secretary in recent days that I don't think are fair. And I looking at this situation, I mean, even today, there's no response from most of these naysayers to Kennedy when he brings up these points, and he makes so many of them. And we played the soundbite during the monologue of the story of the black boys in Fulton County, Georgia. They did that study from 2002, and 260% more likely to have autism if they got the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine before the age of 3. That's research that was deleted from a study. And I just, there's no response to that from the people that criticize him. But what is the answer to something like that? I mean, if there is a danger there, is the answer to wait longer? That vaccine obviously is critical. You need people to get the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, but he shows that there's a danger that's been hidden from the American people.
Of course, it was 2002. It was a very different version of the MMR vaccine than we use today. A lot of the evidence. I mean, I have to say, Rob, I don't think that the MMR vaccine causes autism, just based on my reading of the scientific evidence. But I also know that we don't know what causes the rise in autism. I think the recent prevalence numbers are 1 in 31 kids. A few decades ago, it was 1 in 10,000 kids, and we'd have no idea really of the etiology. As NIH director, at the behest of Secretary Kennedy and President Trump, I've ordered us a honest evaluation of the etiology of autism, what causes the rise in autism. And we competed it through a normal NIH process. 250 research groups across the country competed, and we're going to select the top dozen based on scientific reviewers picking the most promising avenues for answering the question, what causes autism? And we should have something, those research projects ready to start going at the end of this month in record time. I mean, we need to open our space for our minds so that we can ask the real questions that people really want to know the answers to. Get them answers with excellent science. That's the right way, instead of all this disputation.
It's exactly right. And again, nobody in that room that was criticizing him had any answer, had any care at all for the fact that we have all of these problems that we didn't used to have. And he made that point so many times. You never said anything. You criticized me, but you've never said anything. Dr. J, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rob. So good to be back.
All right. Free speech in the UK is dead. A stark reminder of what could be coming here. We've got a very interesting conversation coming up next. All right, welcome back. Happening right now, the president hosting a big tech dinner at the White House. You can see Bill Gates speaking right next to Melania Trump. Tim Cook is there, Zuckerberg's there, Sam Altman. Elon was invited, didn't show, not exactly sure why, but it's a big dinner happening at the White House tonight. They've been having an event all day long with the tech giants. We'll keep you posted if anything interesting happens. In the meantime, a glimpse into our Orwellian dystopian future coming from the UK. Irish comedian Graham Lynham arrested upon arrival at Heathrow Airport for a tweet mocking trans people. They sent 5 armed cops to pick him up at the airport as he landed for a tweet mocking trans people. It's so bad, even the far-left Atlantic magazine now calling it out. The arrest that demonstrates Europe's free speech problem, adding open debate is often obnoxious, upsetting, or rude. None of these adjectives should make it a police matter. But in the UK, it now is. They're arresting people left and right for things that they post on the internet or things that they say. When Lynham showed up to court, that comedian, he was draped in a trans flag sign that read, "There's no such thing as a transgender child." On the other side, it said, "Keep men out of women's sports." He is a fighter all the way to the end, and he's the one that's right. Here in the U.S., Democrats cannot wait to arrest you for hate speech. Take a listen to this from yesterday.
Republicans are vilifying European liberal democracies simply for engaging in the kind of line-drawing exercises that we Americans engage in under our First Amendment. There is a free speech crisis in America today, but there's no free speech crisis in Britain.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. The statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
You should be terrified of both of those people. Dr. Gad Saad is a visiting scholar at Ole Miss's Declaration of Independence Center and the author of the forthcoming book, Suicidal Empathy, which is a great title for a book. And he joins us now. And Doctor, good to have you on. So our rights come from the government, and there is no issue of free speech in Britain. That's what we just heard from 2 of the bigger politicians in this country.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look, the best way to understand the schism that we're seeing these days regarding freedom of speech is something that comes from ethics. There's something called deontological ethics versus consequentialist ethics. Deontological ethics are absolute truths. So, for example, if I say, it is never okay to lie, that would be a deontological statement. If I say it's okay to lie to spare someone's feelings, that would be a consequentialist statement. For most things, it's perfectly reasonable to be a consequentialist. But when it comes to foundational values that have made the West great, those things have to be deontological. Freedom of speech is deontological, meaning you can't say, yes, I believe in freedom of speech, but not if it hurts someone's feelings. Yes, I believe in freedom of speech, but not for Donald Trump because he's too nasty. Yes, I believe in freedom of speech, but not if it criticizes a certain religion. You either believe in freedom of speech or you don't. I'm Jewish. I come from a very rough childhood in the Middle East, and yet I support the right of Holocaust deniers denying the most grotesque historical reality. That's the price that I have to pay to live in a free society.
To live in a free society. There was a British woman that was arrested last week for flying the British flag during a migrant hotel protest. In England, flying the British flag. You can see how enraged she is in that picture, and rightly so. You talk a lot about the suicidal empathy, the suicidal empath. And I mean, I think that's such a great phrase. It's people that have such a feeling of sorrow for the rest of the world and commiserate so hard that they want to destroy their own life, their own quality of life, as a way of projecting, I think, their virtue. And these are the people that are bringing in millions of Middle Eastern migrants into Europe and the UK and destroying their countries. And the rest of them are fighting back against it, and now they're saying, oh, you're going to fight back against us? We're just going to throw you in prison.
Exactly right. Look, empathy, a lot of articles have already been written about my forthcoming book that are completely bogus. I'm not arguing that empathy is not a noble virtue. We are a social species. It makes perfect sense for us to be empathetic. For me to have a meaningful dialogue with you, Rob, I need to put myself in your brain to know what you're thinking. So it is totally fine to have theory of mind and empathy. But like Aristotle explained to us several thousand years ago, all good things at the right amount, at the right place, to the right targets. So arguing that MS-13 gang members deserve more empathy than American vets is suicidal empathy. Arguing that all immigrants are just as likely to assimilate within the American experience is suicidal empathy. Giving felons a 137th second chance is suicidal empathy. So in the book, I demonstrate that all of the domestic and foreign problems that we're seeing stem from this misguided, misdirected empathy.
So well put. You don't write bad books, I can tell you that. Thank you so much, Dr. Gadsad. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, sir. Cheers.
How radical is CBS News? Well, its staffers are reportedly apoplectic as the new boss eyes a moderate Democrat to take over editorial control. That's next with Rick and Ed.
It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
All right, since the Skydance Paramount merger, the new boss at CBS, David Ellison, along with his father, billionaire tech mogul Larry Ellison, trying to save this network that they're acquiring from suicide by left-wing propaganda. They're in the works right now to create a CBS that they say we won't even recognize. The rabid left employees there that are working still at CBS are furious about this, though. They screamed when Colbert was canceled. They screamed when Paramount paid Trump a $16 million settlement for that obvious edit of the Kamala interview before the election. And now they're reportedly apoplectic over the idea of Ellison bringing former New York Times opinion editor Barry Weiss on board in a senior editorial role at CBS News. Think about that. The staff is so radical that they can't even handle a left-of-center moderate likely taking over a lot of, I guess, the opinion politics of what they're going to do at CBS. Weiss resigned from the New York Times in 2020, calling their newsroom at the time of the New York Times an illiberal environment, which to her was heartbreaking. There was so much anti-Semitism, a lot of that bothered her too. Ellison is reportedly set to offer Weiss north of $100 million for her latest project, which is called The Free Press. That's what she did after she left the New York Times. One source familiar with the mood inside CBS News told Oliver Darcy the employees are not happy at all, and that's an indication of just how bad it is. All of this as CBS keeps showing us exactly how toxic it has become in just a matter of maybe 10 or 15 years. Earlier this week, Kristi Noem blasted CBS Sunday show for deceptive editing and whitewashing the truth about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Here's a reminder of what globalist CBS didn't want its viewers to know about this illegal alien that the left has made into some kind of a hero. Take a look.
Doesn't walk free in the United States of America. This individual was a known human smuggler, a MS-13 gang member, an individual who was a wife beater, and someone who was so perverted that he solicited nude photos from minors. And even his fellow human traffickers told him to knock it off. He was so sick in what he was doing and how he was treating small children. So he needs to never be in the United States of America, and our administration is making sure we're doing all that we can to bring him to justice.
Wife beater, pedophile. Remember, this is the guy that Chris Van Hollen went to visit. This is their hero. And CBS is perfectly aligned with the Democrat Party. That's how bad it is. N2 host Rick Leventhal and Ed Henry join us now. Rick, CBS, the staff losing it over Barry Weiss. That's how bad it is over there.
CBS used to be the standard bearer for real journalism. I mean, that is a storied news department and network. I don't know who's working there now. It sounds like the PLO. They're this upset about, are they that anti-Israel because Donald Trump is pro-Israel? We've been supporting Israel for decades under every administration. So I don't really understand what's going on over there, but it's not good.
No, it's not. Ed, I actually spoke with Larry Ellison last week, and it was a very interesting conversation. He told me that he was great friends with Walter Cronkite. He said they used to go boating together. So, Larry, that's the dad, right? He's getting up there. But he truly wants to return CBS to what it was 50 years ago. That's what he told me, and it was very authentic.
Yeah, and as Rick said, they were known as the Tiffany Network when we were all coming of age. We looked up to institutions like CBS News. No more. I mean, because I think the most important clip you just showed was the fact that even after having to pay Donald Trump $16 million for selectively and politically editing that clip on 60 Minutes of Kamala Harris, they have learned nothing at CBS News. And just in the last week, they lied about what Kristi Noem was saying about Abrego Garcia. So I'm sorry, if you want to whine about change that's coming, they have to change it because it's imploding from within and they've learned nothing.
Yeah, and they just keep doubling down and proving themselves. And how stupid was it? I just thought about, just generally, you want to have an agenda, but how dumb are you to not think that Kristi Noem's people are not recording the interview and you're not going to get caught doing that? Of course you're going to get caught. That's the funniest part, Rick.
And they did the same thing with the 60 Minutes clip of Kamala Harris. They altered it to make her sound smarter. In this case, they altered it to make Kristi Noem look bad.
Yeah, and with Kamala, it was the biggest bonehead move was that they put it in that tease earlier in the day during Face the Nation. They teased it and she looked terrible, and then they cleaned it up for 60 Minutes. How do you not know, Ed, that you're going to get caught doing stuff like that?
They got caught. It was there for all to see. You should, do it the right way, right, and tell the truth, because that's the whole point about the Tiffany Network. When Dan Rather and Cronkite and the others were at the top of their game, is that they wanted to behave right, as if, whether anybody was looking or not, they just wanted to do the right thing. It was about the journalism. Now it's about the political agenda. You're right.
They've destroyed credibility that took decades and decades and decades to build. That's how sick the propaganda is inside of that place, and they're losing it. And again, they're losing it over Barry Weiss, which tells you everything. I mean, you'd think Steve Bannon was moving in, the way they're reacting to Barry Weiss, and that tells you everything. Rick and Ed, good to see you guys. Thanks so much.
It does. Good to see you. You too.
All right, some exciting news to report. Our evening lineup here at Newsmax is changing, and Carl Higbee, right there on the screen, his show Frontline, are moving to weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Carl will be right before this show as the new lead into this show. Very happy about that, and Carl joins us now to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hey, my new neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
Good to have you.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so I mean, are you excited about the move? Tell us what to expect.
Well, very excited. It's going to be actually the exact same show, just 1 hour later.
1 hour later.
It's very exciting. So there's not a lot to report.
If you've seen it, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice. Like, I think you and I have a very similar approach to our audience, and I think our audience is very similar. And I think it's going to be a really, really exciting thing. Like, look, Greta, between us, she is a hard news person. She always has been. She's always been a base fact person. She goes to 4 when the news is coming in. It's great. Salcedo goes to 5. I go to 6. Kick right up into you.
It just streams right along. I want to talk about something before I let you go, and that's, I mean, we both at least live or work here in New York City. We're all terrified of Mamdani and what's coming. Okay, I'm a little worried about it. You're not scared of much, I guess, is the point. But we've got this, it's an election coming up soon. There's reports that the Trump administration is trying to effectively save New York City from this guy. And they're doing it by effectively bribing Eric Adams, and I've heard even Curtis Sliwa as well. They're trying to get these two men out of this race so that it becomes a one-on-one between Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo, because new polling shows that Cuomo would beat Mamdani. And I think that to me, that shows, first off, that the administration really does care.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine a Democrat teaming up with a Republican to save a city from someone else? No. I mean, they would never do something like that. They're basically, I mean, with as much trash as Cuomo has talked, the administration is going to help.
Well, this is Trump's city. I mean, this is the guy who reinvented the skyline here that you see right there on that. I mean, like, this is his city. He deeply does care, even though these people have tried to destroy him at every level. Look, the fact that Cuomo is the least bad option, it's like, whoa, maybe move out of New York if you could. I mean, we work here. I can't.
Where are we going to go? It's something else. But I thought that was a pretty good move, and I'm excited to see how that works out. I hope it does work. Carl, thanks so much. We'll see you at 6 p.m. starting on Monday.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, dude.
Carl, thanks. Trump's counterterrorism advisor next on that cartel boat bombing that has enraged the other side. All right, welcome back. We finally have some guts back in the White House earlier this week. We've been talking about it, the U.S. military blowing that cartel drug boat from Venezuela right out of the water, a bomb right on their heads, killing 11 Tren de Aragua gang members, a move that we can now make as drug cartels are finally appropriately labeled terror organizations in this country. They kill a lot of people with these drugs. Axios reporting the U.S. has entered a new era. The war on drugs is officially a war. Trump's drug war looks like a real war, Axios reporting. A senior administration official telling them the president's overall perspective is that if there is a terrorist threat to the homeland of the United States, he trusts the military to take that threat out, whether it's a drug boat off the coast of Venezuela or an al-Qaeda terrorist in the Middle East. And again, these drugs kill a lot more people than radical Islamic terror. As scary as that is to say, a lot more people, like 30 9/11s every year. Sebastian Gorka, Senior Director for Counterterrorism. This is his wheelhouse, and sir, good to have you back on. Your reaction to the reporting on this, and it was so great, I think, to see our government finally take seriously something that has killed so many people in this country.
Right. Thank you, Rob. Let's just, continue the thread that you just explained about the inordinate numbers and what this threat really means and why we have every right and, in fact, a duty to declare war on these cartels and label them as terrorist organizations. Yeah. When I had my Newsmax show, for one of my episodes, I sat down and I did the unclassified analysis of how dangerous these cartels are. If you add up every U.S. serviceman killed in action since the end of World War II to today, so that's Korea, Vietnam, that's Panama, Grenada, Gulf I, Gulf II, Afghanistan, all of those wars together, it's 103,000 killed in action in 75 years. Under the Biden administration's open border policy, it's on the CDC website of the Biden administration, one 12-month period of open borders led to the deaths of over 110,000 Americans, mostly through fentanyl. So more Americans were killed in 1 year, Rob, under Biden, thanks to the cartels, than in 70 years of combat. That's why that ship was blown up.
It's something else. The people who ignored 100,000 dead Americans every single year from fentanyl were very offended by the bombing of that cartel boat, as you have seen. The former Human Rights Executive Director, I'm going to read it here, Kenneth Roth, posting on X, drug traffickers are not combatants who can be shot on sight. They are criminal suspects who must be arrested and prosecuted. We also have Kilmar Abrego Garcia's best friend, Chris Van Hollen, saying this. Take a listen.
What this was an extrajudicial killing, pure and simple. It was illegal. As you said, we only have the Trump administration's word to take for who was on that boat. But even if they were right, we're not in a war with Venezuela.
Maybe we should be in a war with people that, as you said, kill 100,000 Americans every single year that Chris Van Hollen doesn't care about because none of them lived in his neighborhood.
We have declared war on those who are murdering Americans by the tens and hundreds of thousands. If you're on the side of the cartels, you're not on the side of America. If you are turning an MS-13 human trafficker into a Maryland father, you are choosing the side of evil. 18 million Americans chose this response to the terrorists and the jihadis, of which we have killed more than 312 in the last 8 months, and also the cartels. And there's a reason. Let me just share with you how serious we are. This is the phrase. It's on the lanyard of my team from the president's first viral tweet when we took out that ISIS leader in Somalia 11 days into this administration. We will find you and we will kill you. If you're a jihadi with American blood on your hands, if you're a cartel member bringing powdered death into America, you have declared war on us, and we will turn you into red mist. It is that simple.
I love it. And I tell you what, you blow up a couple more of these boats, and I think people will be shocked by how much less of that deadly drug is coming into this country because, they'll deal with arrests.
A colleague of mine said it last night.
Yeah.
Rob, a colleague of mine said it to me last night. You're going to think twice as a dealer of death to get into one of those boats after that post by the president.
You have to have some nerves because they can see everything. We know that. Sebastian Gorka, good to see you. Thank you so much.
God bless. Thank you, Rob.
Hollywood's radical lefties have invaded Italy, the Venice Film Festival receiving its longest standing ovation. 22 minutes at the premiere of a movie called The Voice of Hind Rajab, which tells the story of a 5-year-old Palestinian girl killed by the IDF during the Gaza war. Attendees in the crowd held up Palestinian flags, chanted Free Palestine, a record-breaking 22-minute ovation, all based on propaganda. David Friedman is a former U.S. ambassador to Israel and author of One Jewish State and joins us now. You can feel bad all day long for those that have died inside Gaza. You're blaming the wrong side, and it's just nonsensical propaganda, and they all clap like seals.
Look, Israel's defending itself in a war it didn't start, a war it didn't want, a war in which 1,200 of its civilians were murdered. 250 were kidnapped, continue to be held, some of them in brutal conditions. It's a war, there's no such thing as a war in which you don't have casualties on both sides. But, as you know, make no mistake, this war was started by Hamas. It's being continued by Hamas. It could end any day that Hamas surrenders and gives up the hostages. So why they're all cheering for the wrong side, I don't know. It's getting old.
Yeah, it is getting old. It's surreal to watch. The stupidity is just unbelievable. The misplaced empathies and sympathies. Amid this war, we have the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, revoking visas from members of the Palestinian Authority and the PLO, including the President Mahmoud Abbas, which is going to be interesting when the UN General Assembly comes here to New York in about a week or so. Your thoughts on that move and how it will be received?
Well, yeah, the UN's giving a big party without a guest of honor. They were hoping to coronate, Mahmoud Abbas, and he's not going to be let in, and he shouldn't be let in. And kudos to Secretary Rubio and President Trump. There was a basis to do this all throughout the Biden administration. Look, the PLO has long been a terrorist organization. They've gotten a bunch of waivers ever since Oslo, but those waivers were conditioned upon them renouncing terror, not litigating against Israel in the International Criminal Court, not trying to unilaterally obtain statehood. They breached this over and over and over again. And Rubio said enough, and Trump said enough, and they're absolutely right. And kudos to them. And it's a shame that Biden didn't do this. He had 4 years. He could have done the same thing.
Yeah. And maybe we'll see the president come to the UN and lambaste them like he's so good at, because what a pitiful organization that is. Right down the street here from Newsmax. Ambassador Friedman, thanks so much for coming on. Good to see you.
Thanks, Rob. Good to be with you.
All right. The book from Ambassador Friedman, President Trump's first ambassador to Israel, right there, One Jewish State. His work has sparked new debate about Israel, Palestine, and the future of the Middle East. You can get it for free with an offer from Newsmax. Joy Reid is furious that history is being uncanceled. That's next in News from the Left.
MAGA are neo-Confederates and that they revere the Confederacy and want it back. I am not using hyperbole.
Back time now for News from the Left. A painting of General Robert E. Lee in Confederate uniform with a slave guiding his horse is back on display at West Point's library. The 20-foot, I don't think that's the one. The 20-foot painting was removed in 2022, that's not it, to comply with a Department of Defense directive ordering the U.S. Military Academy to address racial justice and eliminate anything commemorating the Confederacy. So they took it down from West Point. An Army's communication director telling CBS News the United States Military Academy is prepared to restore historical names, artifacts, and assets to their original form and place, adding, under this administration, we honor our history and learn from it. We don't erase it, which is so important to all those clowns that wanted to tear down monuments and things like that. People like former MSNBC host Joy Reid, who is a Marxist and simply wants all history she doesn't like erased.
When I tell you that MAGA are neo-Confederates and that they revere the Confederacy and want it back, I am not using hyperbole. The Pentagon, under TV Pete Hegseth, is reinstalling a portrait of Confederate General Robert E. Lee at the West Point Library. The portrait is of him in his Confederate uniform and an enslaved person pulling his horse. You can't make it up.
You can make it up. It's a part of history, honey. That's kind of the way things work. And history's all over the world. It goes back thousands of years in some places. Joy Reid wants to start the conversation about history of this country. When? At what point is comfortable for her? Because she sure talks about all of these things all the time, and she claims victimhood from all these things all the time. So what's wrong with having a painting of it? If you're going to talk about it every day, why can't there be a painting of it? Next up, as the Trump White House continues to fight to defund Planned Parenthood, a fight that's ended up in the courts, a message from the ladies of the Democrat Party.
Thank you, Planned Parenthood.
Thank you, Planned Parenthood.
Thank you, Planned Parenthood.
Thank you, Planned Parenthood.
We thank you for saving women's lives.
saving women's lives and killing millions of babies in the process. And finally, American Eagle stock skyrocketed 38% today after they had a big and very impressive earnings report yesterday based on the success, of course, of the Sydney Sweeney ad. Because at the end of the day, Americans still like a hot blonde. In just 6 weeks, the campaign has generated unprecedented new customer acquisition from every single county in the United States, according to an article about it on the Wall Street Journal. There you have it. People speak. Trump wants to go back to the moon. Did we ever go in the first place? Next. Finally tonight, NASA Administrator Sean Duffy announcing the U.S. government has officially confirmed plans to return to the moon next year. Duffy says the mission is part of a new space race against China. We're also racing with Russia, trying to take control of space. That's what the Space Force is all about. Astronauts spending up to 12 days on the moon. From there, he says Mars is next. Different theories swirl about the original moon landing from long ago. Some people think we never actually went. Many say the flag looked off, weird shadows. It was broadcast so easily way back then. We hit the streets of New York to talk about all of this. Check it out.
Do you think the United States has ever been to the moon? The moon landing?
I think the moon landing is like real.
No, not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's easy to be cynical about these things, and sometimes people go down rabbit holes as to different conspiracy theories.
I don't know. Did we ever go to the moon?
Of course we went to the moon.
I don't think we have.
A lot of things are looking like we haven't.
I guess I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna be on the skeptical side.
From what I've heard, I think it is.
Just recently I saw one of the reels where they were showing the suit that they preserved for the first walk on the moon, which is a completely different shoe print than the one that they displayed that was on the moon.
Who knows? But I know they wasn't on no damn moon.
We're trying to go back. We're in kind of like a new space race now. We want to build like a nuclear reactor on the moon. What do you think of that idea?
I think that might be good.
I don't like the idea of anyone having nuclear anything.
If the United States, gets everyone together to do that, I think it would be an asset for the country.
You think we'll ever go to Mars?
Isn't Mars a little further than the moon? I mean, you gotta do common sense here, right?
What do you think? You think we ever went? I really I'm flipping on it. I don't know. I could see us not going the first time and then figuring it out years later, just wanting to win that race. Tweet me. Let me know what you think. Infinity's next. You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.